out. But give us an idea. What's the buzz like, not only in the city, but also in the entire state surrounding this game tonight?
Well, I mean, I think there's two storylines. One is if you're looking at it from a national standpoint, I mean, I think people are trying to gauge, they kind of looking as litmus tests to see how some of these nationally ranked teams really are. I mean, it's not the NBA. Louisville's, it's going to be its 12th game. Kentucky, I don't know where they are. They're about the same thing. And really, between the two of them, they probably each have played 4 games against teams that you would say are, decent to use as a yardstick. Louisville's played Old Dominion and Wichita State and Baylor and Purdue. And Kentucky, of course, has unusual because they usually play the harder preseason schedule, but I don't think they really did this year. They've had UCLA and North Carolina, and they split those games, and now they have this one. And the other really powerful non-conference game they have doesn't come until January in the SEC Big 12 Challenge when they play Kansas. So this is an important game to them, and people will be looking at this. They're ranked 6th and 7th, and these are games that help determine your seeding, and both coaches are very, very adamant that, if you're going to have a realistic chance to make a deep March run, you better come in with a very high seed, certainly 1, 2, or maybe 3, and these are the kind of games you got to have to do that. Now, locally, the game has added interest because Louisville's really gone through a rough time the last 15 months with all sorts of crazy things going on, from the basketball scandal to now this most recent thing with the Wakey leaks or whatever they're calling that thing with Wake Forest. And they really have hung their hats in this rivalry on the football matchup. They've kind of dominated the football matchup while Kentucky's dominated the basketball matchup. And then the Wildcats went and upset the apple cart this year. They went and won the football game. So the Louisville fans are feeling a little stress, and the Kentucky people are feeling a little strut, and that usually leads to some entertaining stuff going on around the state. But it's a big game, and it's got national ramifications. But around here, it's just they could both be 0-10, and it would still be a huge rivalry.
Sure.
All right, give us a little insight into the coaches in this game and how they're going to game plan. Let's start with Rick Pitino. What do you think he'll devise in order to stop Malik Monk from scoring 47 points on his cards?
Well, that's a good question. And Roy Williams doesn't exactly have oatmeal for brains, and he couldn't figure it out, so I'm not exactly sure what Rick's going to do. But I do know his philosophies. I think there'll be a couple of things. He plays a lot of this. It's not even really a matchup zone. I can't kiddingly call it some mind meld defense that they play. They line up at 2-3. But for some of the possession, they could be in zone. For some of it, they're in man. There's certain places where they may trap out of it. The whole point of it is to try and keep you off balance because you're never really sure what they're playing. And they've had great success with it. If you look at the Ken Palm stats, they've been among the national leaders in defense over the last 3 or 4 years. And it's been basically, he's played that defense probably 85 to 90% of the time. Now, this year, he's determined to go play more man-to-man. You can say, well, why is he doing that if they've been so good defensively? Well, because he thinks that defense has been so good at confusing people, it's taken them so long to see what it is that Louisville's running and try and figure it out that the game gets slowed to a point they don't want to play. They're playing at a pace that's too slow. They want the game to go faster. So he's bit the bullet a little bit and said, I'm going to play more man-to-man and understand we may not be quite as good defensively, but at least the game will go at a more comfortable pace and it'll help our offense. And so, but I think it's his security blanket. I think he always has that in his back pocket. He has great faith in it. And so I'd be surprised if we don't see some of it. If they do play man-to-man, what Louisville will do and has done is they'll switch 1 through 5. They switch everybody. And that is one of the things that it prevents them. Their bigs are really athletic and very, very long. And so if Monk tries to come off a screen and he's switched out to a big guy, you could say, well, you would think the guard would have a great advantage to go around them. But as Monk, his first starts to shoot over them, he's going to have a hard time shooting over Anis Mahmoud or Mango Mathiang or Ray Spalding. Spalding and Mahmoud are spider-like how long they are. So I think that's what he'll do. I think he'll try and run. I don't think he's going to want to artificially slow the game down, but I think he's not going to try and run. They'll run when they can. If it's not there, they'll very willingly pull it out and run their offense and try and make Kentucky guard them in the half court. But, their offensively, you look at the statistics for Louisville offense, Kentucky offense, Louisville defense, Kentucky defense, there's only one of those 4 that's kind of, if it was a multiple choice test, you say, well, that one stands out, and that's Louisville's offense. But they're 33rd in the country, so they're not especially good. The other 3 categories, both the teams are in the top 7, I think. Louisville's defense is number 1. Kentucky's 5 and 7 with their offense and defense. So It's Louisville's offense that's the question mark. They've had a hard time making shots. They haven't had one guy this year yet score 20 points in a game. So they are. You never know where the points are going to come from, and that's going to be the big question mark in this game as well.
Sure, and we'll see how that nation's #1 defense, what that can do for Louisville against that Kentucky offense. So let me use a term, or you use a term here that we hear from Louisville people, but usually during the first weekend of May at the Derby. Are you thinking that this is going to be a little bit of a fast track, or is this going to be more of a mutter tonight?
No, it won't be a mutter, and it's been a mutter in some recent years. I don't think, let's put it this way, I don't think Kentucky certainly has no interest in playing a game in the mud. Most people seem to think it would help Louisville if the game were a little slower. I don't think Rick is going into the game with that as his intent. I really don't. I think he will want to slow it down a little bit. I don't think he's going to want to be lightning fast, but I think I think the pace, he wants to push a little bit. And the reason for that is, his mentor and the guy we quote all the time, U.B. Brown, always says that all things equal, the team that scores the most easy baskets usually wins. And they're not going to get any easy baskets if they're going to walk it up all the time and try and play against Kentucky's half-court defense. That defense is pretty good, and Louisville struggles in the half-court. So they're going to need to push and try and get some easy ones in transition. But I don't think it's going to be a track meet. If it is, but, that's the great thing about this game. Who knows? Excuse me, I'm sorry, fighting a little cold. Who knows who's going to step up and be the hero? We had Josh Harrelson a few years ago making every big shot in the game because Rick Pitino was so determined not to let Terrence Jones get going in the front court that Harrelson had a million shots and he made them all. Last year was a very close game, and then Dominique Hawkins, of all people, not that he's not a good player, but he's certainly not one of the one-and-done crew, came up and hit a whole bunch of big perimeter shots and really was the deciding factor in the game. So I don't know. That's the great thing about rivalries. You never know.
Yeah, I think maybe we all lost when Josh Harrelson was the hero, because then his pictures in jorts made its way all over social media right after that game, and yeah, it's still tough to kind of get out of our sights.
Hey, Bob, what's your prediction for tonight?
Well, if they played the game 1,000 times, I think Kentucky would win more than 500. But I really don't have any strong feeling one way or another. Where if you said to me, this is the result, I would be absolutely shocked. Even the one that you would think would be the least likely would be Louisville to win by a big margin. So that would seem to be very surprising. But I'll give you a stat that would probably make their eyebrows raise a little bit. Kentucky, for all of their great offensive numbers, if you look at the people they've played so far this season, the collective ranking, the average ranking of the teams they played defensively is 227th in the country. So they're putting up some of these gaudy numbers on defenses that are nowhere near what Louisville's is. So that's what Louisville fans are hanging their hat on. So, if Louisville were to win by double digits, that would be the most surprising result for me, but not out of the realm of possibility. So, honestly, I think, as I said, I don't know what the spread is. The spread opened at Louisville by 2, then it went to Kentucky by 2 or 1, then it went back to Louisville by 1. That's pretty much reflects my thoughts. I'm back and forth. I don't know. I think Kentucky right now has looked better at times, but you try not to get lured into the fool's gold because they've been so much better offensively. That's what you kind of everybody responds to offense. It's more eye friendly. So, but I think they're a little bit better in terms of, I think when you have that ability to score, you have a bigger margin for error. So I would make them a slight favorite. But again, I'm not being diplomatic or coy. It could go any way. Either way, either team in a close game, either team by double digits. None of those results would absolutely shock me.